By mid-2026, the average premium on a steel Rolex had collapsed from 38% to just 6.7%. That means the watch you bought at peak hype is worth significantly less today. Some references have lost 30%, 40%, even 50% of their secondary market value. 8 watches, 8 corrections, 8 lessons in what happens when hype meets reality. Stay with me until number 1. That watch has dropped more than anything else on this list, and the reason will change how you think about Rolex forever. Number 8. The Rolex Daytona 116500LN white dial, the Panda. Let's get this one out of the way early because it's the most famous correction on the list. In early 2022, this watch traded north of $52,000 on the secondary market. In mid-2026, current secondary sits between $28,000 and $31,000, nearly a 50% drop from the absolute peak. And the reason is surprisingly simple. Rolex released the new reference 126500LN in 2025 with an updated movement, a new bezel profile, and subtle dial refinements. The collector market moved to the new reference. The old reference didn't disappear. It just became the previous generation. It's still a brilliant chronograph. But the gap between a new reference and an older one has widened to a point where the secondary premium for the older watch has effectively evaporated, from $52,000 to $27,000. Number 7. The Rolex Submariner Date 126610LV. The green bezel Submariner was the darling of the hype cycle. In 2022, it traded at a 60% premium above retail, around $18,000 against a $10,800 sticker. In 2026, the secondary market has settled at approximately $13,500. That's a 25% drop from the peak. The reason isn't oversupply, it's something more subtle. The green bezel, which had been a premium differentiator during the frenzy, became a niche preference. Buyers asked themselves, do I really want a green bezel Submariner, or do I want the classic black? Increasingly, they chose black. The Starbucks correction is a lesson in specificity. The more distinct the configuration, the more volatile the demand. Number 6. The Rolex GMT-Master II 126710BLRO, the Pepsi. The Pepsi is one of the most iconic watches ever made, and in 2026, it's trading at approximately $19,500 against a retail of $10,800. That's still a healthy premium, nearly double retail, but it's down from a peak of $32,000 in 2022. That's a 39% drop. The reason is twofold. First, the hype around the Pepsi was built on scarcity. When Rolex quietly increased production of the GMT-Master II in 2025, that scarcity narrative cracked. Second, the release of the 2025 left-handed GMT-Master II Sprite diverted collector attention. The Pepsi went from being the only two-color GMT to one of several, and when that happened, the premium compressed. The Rolex Pepsi is still a brilliant watch. Number 5. The Rolex Explorer 226570, the Polar. The Explorer 2 correction is one of the cleanest examples of what happens when a manufacturer solves its own supply problem, which sounds like a good thing. The Explorer 2, which had previously required waitlist patience and often attracted gray market premiums for that inconvenience, became straightforwardly available at authorized dealers. No premium, no wait, just retail. And the moment that happened, the secondary market premium evaporated. Why pay $11,000 for a watch when you can just walk into a boutique and buy it for $10,600? Can't make that argument. So the secondary now sits between $9,500 and $10,000. Number 4. The Rolex Yacht-Master 42226627, the Titanium. This one is interesting because it's a relatively new reference. Rolex introduced the titanium Yacht-Master in 2023 with significant fanfare. Titanium case, 42mm, 70-hour power reserve. It was the lightest, most comfortable Rolex sports watch ever made, but the collector market didn't embrace it the way Rolex expected. By mid-2026, the secondary market had settled at approximately $13,500 against a retail of $14,100. That's a 4% drop below retail. The reason is subtle. Titanium, for all its technical advantages, doesn't polish like steel. The dark, matte finish lacks the visual pop that Rolex collectors typically gravitate toward. Number 3. The Rolex Deepsea Challenge 12 626067, the Deepsea Challenge. This is the biggest watch Rolex has ever made. 50 millimeters, titanium, rated to 11,000 meters. It was a technical marvel and a commercial disappointment. Rolex released it with a retail price of approximately $26,000, targeting the serious dive enthusiast. But the reality is that almost nobody needs a watch that goes 11,000 meters underwater. The case thickness, over 23 millimeters, makes it impractical for any kind of regular wear. By mid-2026, the secondary market had dropped to approximately $19,000. That's a 27% drop below retail. Number 2, the Rolex Sky Dweller 336934, the Blue Dial. The Sky Dweller is Rolex's most complicated watch. Annual calendar, dual time zone, the ring command bezel that sets functions without tools. In 2022, the steel Blue Dial Sky Dweller was trading at $24,000 against a $14,000 retail. In 2026, current secondary sits between $18,000 and $19,500. That's a 20% drop from the peak. The premium for complicated GMT watches softened as business travel normalized. Second, the watch world's aesthetic preference shifted towards smaller, simpler, cleaner pieces. The sub-39mm vintage proportion conversation started dominating collector forums, and the Sky Dweller's 42mm case with its visually complex dial felt increasingly at odds with that mood. The CPO program hit this reference hard, too. Officially sanctioned, pre-owned Sky Dwellers at boutiques removed the exclusivity argument that supported the gray market premiums. The Sky Dweller is still the most advanced watch Rolex makes, but being the most advanced doesn't always mean the most desired. Number 1, the Rolex Day-Date 40228238, the yellow gold president. This is the one that surprises people the most. The yellow gold Day-Date is the original status symbol. It has been worn by presidents, CEOs, and the world's wealthiest individuals for 6 decades. And in 2026, it's trading at approximately $31,000 against a retail of $38,000. That's an 18% drop below retail. The reason is generational. The yellow gold president was the watch of the baby boomer generation. It was the symbol of achievement for executives in the 1980s, 1990s, and early 2000s. But the new generation of collectors, millennials and Gen Z, prefer steel. They prefer subtlety. They prefer under the radar. The yellow gold president, with its visible, unmistakable crown and its weight and its flash, has become the watch that younger collectors actively avoid. It's not that it's a bad watch. It's that the generation that defined its status is aging out, and the generation that's coming up doesn't see the same symbol of success. The Day-Date correction is the most culturally significant on this list. It's not about supply, not about production, not about a model refresh. It's about the end of an era. The watch that defined success for half a century is being redefined by a generation that wants something different. That's the most profound correction of all. The Explorer 2 buyer who wants to wear one and doesn't care about the secondary market premium, they've arguably never been in a better position. The Day-Date buyer who actually loves yellow gold, they're looking at a watch that was $40,000 and is now $31,000. That's either a problem or an opportunity, depending on your perspective.